in, coming back like a cone that goes to the brain. The brain deciphers it and draws a picture. Therefore, this is why symbolism is used to speak to the brain from ancient time to present.
Absolutely, because sometimes some things like words might change or so forth, but symbols are more universal.
And this is also why many ancient symbols of Africa, Ikuta, and the Yucatan, are misrepresented by the priesthood as being negative so that you would reject them and not liberate yourself from them. Yet they use them to empower themselves over the masses.
For instance, and we brought this up, I think I brought this up before in talking to, just giving some commentary to what you're saying. Traditionally, the symbol of the eagle.
Yes.
So okay. But the eagle has been given sort of was the majestic animal. We're not going to negate the beauty and majesty of the eagle, but the symbolism universally for the eagle is war, control, government, and then by contrast, the serpent has been given the negative when it's really that's knowledge, wisdom. That's that kind of
Now, yes, continue. Keep on. Whatever you feel, speak. Go ahead.
No, I'm just
put it out. No, put it out there because don't hold anything back.
So so those things symbolically, I was looking at a show that actually was breaking down various hieroglyphic symbols that we see. So, for instance, many people have seen, and I know we're getting off subject a little bit, but many of us have seen the pictures of the hieroglyphs, and then you'll see sometimes it looks like they'll say, well, that's the Anunnaki, and they had bird heads, and they had human bodies and animal heads. The heads apparently always depict sort of like where that being who actually would be a human in this, if you will, in its appearance. Really, the head was symbolic of the mentality or the might or whatever the mission was. So when you saw an eagle or what looked like a bird, you see the ibis or whatever, you see the bird head, that was sort of like the eagle. So that was more governmental. When you see this, like I said, in the serpent, that was one that was giving knowledge. When you see them holding what looks like a pocketbook, and you see a lot of these things and they're holding like something with a handle, that would have been like let me go back, the pine cones. You see some look like they're passing a pine cone. Well, the pine cone you see symbolic, and the Vatican uses it.
Those would be lessons.
Well, that's knowledge being passed on. And then the pocketbook or the whatever the purse it looked like would be like a tools. I'm giving you the knowledge to do it. Now here are the tools to do it. So they would be passing on knowledge and information, and there needed to be the balance. You needed the eagle.
Something is the pocketbook is also referenced as the bag of tricks, and it's also the bag of keys.
But because it was like there's always a balance, and so you did need both the eagle, which is government, and the serpent, which is knowledge, because apparently a lot of the ancient civilizations evolved so highly using just knowledge that when the negative, when the negative I'm going to call it egalitarian type energies came in, they were able to overthrow them because they were warlike, and the other ones were using they were using their head, they were using their intuition and all these things.
Let's put it this way: one of the keys of the conquest of the ancient world are two. Just put two, because everything, positive and negative, is the way ancient ones of our forefathers, i.e., violating some of our own principles, and the hybrid or Germanic tribes overthrowing a peaceful people. As you see, war, or what you would call the respect for life, is a part and has always been a part of African Asiatic culture. And whereas in the nature of general operations, one of the principles of civilization is the keeping of your word, or the honor, the moral integrity of structure and of agreement, or what you call contract. One of the keys to the operative construction of de facto operations at Midgard has been those who chose to take the exact opposite and be what you call bloodletters or bloodshedders, coming as men of peace, but actually deceiving and practicing war. So you have two different characters of operations in nature. That is not to misrepresent or to say that those of our ancient mothers and fathers did not do what you call less than honorable things. So you understand. But the nature of the civilization principles of the ancient Lemurians, Canaanites, Moabites, based on the operations of cosmic order and the observations and maintenance of the divine laws of nature as a construct and the order of government, knowing that via that preservation of those principles, you have longevity in civilization. Absolutely, you have what you call karmic collapse, or you would say the principle of reaping what you sow is often referred to as cause and effect, destruction. Much of what you see now, but again, this is again why sometimes when we're going over the problems of humanity at Midgard, particularly in these days, in your more contemporary times, we will remind the people to recognize some of the symbolisms that are in their native original Edamon nature of operation. As an example, Hela, or the eagle, it does mean ruler or overseer because it actually symbolizes spirituality, because the Hela can look into the sun. Because remember, the nature and the culture and customs of the ancient Canaanite Moabite nation is what you would call the eye, or the people of the eye. And that is the seven senses. So when you deal with the five senses, you also have intuition and insight. Now, when they are conjoined as one, then you get the eye, what they call the eye of Horus, or the one seeing, or the all-seeing eye. Now, when or the divine eye of providence. After the Napoleonic Wars and the captive of the last of the Moabite popes, because originally the Vatican is actually originally African. People don't know that history because that's written out. It's particularly since 1863. And so you have Roma and you have Rome.
Give us a difference.
All right, Roma is pre Napoleon. Rome, that's Roma, Roma, pre-Napoleon. Rome, post-Napoleon. And this is where, like, when those who are more honest about history will tell the truth as to why they use Napoleon as you might say, as a reference point. But you understand that these are Roman armies in general. Went around the world shooting the noses and all identifiable constructive aspects of the ancient world off of statues and temples. They would blow temples up, destroy ancient papyri, etc. And that was the beginning of them reconstructing history, not just in the reconstruction of North America. That's where that pattern has its origin. As an example, Aquila, or like you see in Iberia, you see the double-headed eagle with the crown. That means the two sides of the brain, the left and the right side of the brain, and the cognizance of it in one bird. And the bird is one of the few of the species that can look directly into the sun and not be blinded, and also can turn its head 190 degrees, which is why you see the double-headed eagle. That's ancient Iberia, or what people assume to be today only, and this is a misrepresentation, The hybrid Germanic tribes in Germany is actually ours. So, and this is again when you deal with the true European, or we call Iberians, and why the dark priesthood and the scholars never talk about the fact that Europe is Phoenicia, i.e., Iberia, and that it's actually the extension of North Africa or the peninsula. And so, in order to reconstruct history, they steal the history and kill off the Aboriginal people, i.e., the Picts, the Maoris, and the Dubs, and hide that history, particularly since the mid 1800s, just as they do in North America. And so, as the people are presented with the history, many of our people will reject European history, not knowing it themselves, reject the knowledge of why we would have eagle feathers in our turbans and in our fezzes, which symbolize divinity or the ethereal world, symbolic, and also because particularly the Maghreb is also known as the temple of the moon and sun. So North America is referred to as the temple of the moon and sun. That's the culture. And of course, this is again when you hear these terms in the social engineering of the hybrid Europeans trying to separate Egypt from Africa. They not only mean Hikupta on that side, they actually mean Egypt of the West, the Maghreb, or North America, and the truth of the connection of the two cultures, including to Yucatan, North, South, and Central North America, and including the true history of Hammurabi Bey and Hagar, who ruled Central America, yet they have a grave for Hagar at Mecca. But that's why they don't teach that history together. And also the matriarchy, which is an extension of the high court or the high house of the pharaohs, which is actually a matriarchy. And of course, from that comes the monarchy. And from the monarchies being overthrown is actually, in its truth, Africa and Asia, and the matriarchy structure of government being overthrown. And of course, that's given a negative too, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Well, yes.
From a standpoint of, though, going back to subject matter of intuition, what has happened to us to disconnect us from, or has anything occurred?
It's an artificial construct. This is what we're also established. Remember with the and as we've talked this many times, this is not new. Meaning that because basically truth, like we talked about before, has no versions. It's just simply what it is. And we're giving synopsis because that's all you can give. Synopsis, basically, of the chronology, the history, what got us to where we are today, what are the motivations of the parties in controversy in relationship to the conquest of nations, as described in the Torah, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bible, in the Pentateuch, in Septuaginta, etc. Or the battles of nations, and why the dark priesthood have been suppressing the issue of nationality, distinguished from what they refer to themselves as under the Inquisition operations as the God of this world or owners of the globe or globalists, right? And why they've been killing off the Aboriginal people and then trying to claim Midgard, the earth. And of course, all the dynamics in between. And then, of course, things that are practiced now called censoring or demonetizing, blocking out, killing people's communications accounts are relative to indexus librorum expurgatorius and indexus librorius librorium prohibitorum, which are known also but misrepresented as the great Christian book burners, but they're not Christians, they're Constantinians hiding behind Christianity. And one of the things that the dark priesthood have always done is that they've always practiced, and this is another way to use your superconscious mind to start looking at things through your gut, your heart, and your mind and your head, and conjoin them in order to empower yourself to intuit things, because that's why they don't teach you about that sense because they know when you go there, you'll start solving problems in all of the idol god systems and all of the de facto government systems that people have put their faith in, including all of the fiat instrumentalities that's created to support these constructs, will in fact collapse, often known as the apostasy, also known as Armageddon, also known as the dying of the old world, of corruption of Satan, and the coming again of the Christ, or the crystallized mind, or the activation of Horus, or the eye, or the Cyclops, or the third eye activity, or the sixth sense, or at least minimally the fifth dimension, or sometimes referred to as the higher planes of life, all representing that same principle, or the anointing of the head with oil, also the ascension, also the kundalini, all symbolize humanity evolving into minimally the higher side of the fourth dimension, which also all things made manifest that shoot through the earth, including the transference of negative energy, also, and the capacity to make that discernment so that we can go into the higher planes of light, qualified to come out of this bubble kind of thing, or the suppression that has been what is demonstratively referred to as the encasement in hell,
The matrix.
of yes,
Yeah.
of us,
Right.
because it's really us being put in the underground chambers of the church, but not the real church, the church of Satan, but not. Satan is also misrepresented too. We won't say that right now. We won't go into that right now. But those who have claimed the Lucifer to have the light, but they're really angels of the dark. That's who's been operating here. The other issue is, so hell is really the executor's chamber. We went through this before.
Right.
So the people, it's not a place to go. It's really those who have not been paying off the de facto taxes to the harlot known as the false queen. That would be represented by both the Queen Columbia, that is politically seated at the District of Columbia at Washington, dealing with the principle of Manuel, or the rewritten hand, dealing with the hands of man, 10 fingers, and so they represent 10 square miles, representing the 10 fingers, or representing the reconstructing of history and the reconstruction of proper government into a de facto platform known as the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., and regulated by the artificial or the substitute queen at the land of Angles, or England land, i.e., District of London, or the City of London, which of course you already know, those three stars that their flag that they fly at Washington, representative of the overthrow of the republic that is derived from Muslim law, that is derived from Saba principles, that's derived from Hermetic law, that's represented in what they would call the city of brotherly love, which is the first principle of the pentastar, or what's called a pentagram, which is the symbol of man, etc., and of Anael, or Freya, or Freya, or Friday, etc., or Venus. And that is the pentagram. That's why they even present the pentagram as a negative, when actually it's the sign of man. And as man stands, you'll see man stand like this in a circle, and you have arm, leg, arm, head, Allah forward, Allah backwards, coming from the womb of woman. Therefore, Muslim is not a belief system, it's simply the fetus of all product of the womb. And of course, Allah symbolizes the feminine principle. It's not some guy sitting with a turban on a throne where everybody goes to salami bologna. So don't buy into that. That's not to condemn people who have been taught the anthropomorphic aspect. You understand? Mm-hmm. It's just telling you the truth of the real culture here that's been misrepresented. Because everything that's presented is also misrepresented. And keep in mind, you're dealing with what the duality of aspects. As another example, to really reclaim the honor of your mothers and fathers, you must present yourself in proper person. You can't represent yourself because that's the dead. This is why you will always see whenever there's a controversy of a state, they have told the people or trained the people that they need for a hybrid European of the Sadducees and Pharisees to represent them. At that time, you've given them your birthright because a liberated man or a liberated woman presents himself, never represented. This is why they always would make the statement that anyone who seeks to represent themselves in a court is a fool, because that means they don't understand what represent means. Represent means, like, for instance, if you show me some of these pictures back here where I might see you, that's a representation. What happens if it starts talking? So when you have another man or woman represent you and you start speaking, you're in contempt. Because you just said that you're cardboard, you're a poster, you're a picture, you're an abstract, you're not real, you're a prima facie, you're a semblance, as distinguished from that which is real. Thus, you're colored, so you have no right to speak. Therefore, they claim your estate, and they've been robbing us ever since. So this body of Sadducees and Pharisees, they have created all the constructs and instruments by which the birthright of man have been stolen, including the marriage certificate, including the birth certificate, including other instrumentalities. So back to the cognates that were presenting this aspect of the supraliminal,